When you first open Rhino, you will see this setup. So you're going to find your objects placed on the window where you draw, and the views are going to be projected in and the views are going to be projected on the other windows as well. So if you draw a cylinder from starting from the top view, then you can move to the other views to complete the part. So Rhino is very redundant. It's not like other software where you have one main way to access the commands and perhaps there are shortcuts. Now, Rhino is very redundant in the sense that you have access to the commands and options through these columns, the lines, curves, solid operations, transformations, and we will go over some of them throughout these tutorials. The other way to access those commands are up here, the tabs. So the curve tab will show you the same options that you will access through here, right? Or the surface command, you'll get the same ways to access your commands through here. So for instance, you want to create a surface. So you start with a rectangle, and then you want to create a surface. So if you come here, it says surface from 3 or 4 point coordinate. So you can click that, 2, 3, and 4, and then go to perspective. So now you have a surface. Another way to create a surface would be the same command will be right here, plane, corner to corner. That's a surface as well. Or you can Control Z. Let's do. You can type planar surface, and that will basically ask you for the plane, and now that's a surface. So there are many ways to access the surface. So of course, if you have a closed curve, this shape could be as complex as you want it as long as you have a closed curve. To make sure that you have a closed curve, you have the snaps. So for instance, in order to start exactly from 0, you can have your grid snap on, and when you click on rectangle, or if you type rectangle here, you would start from 0. You can also type 0 up here at the command line and start there, and then the snap, grid snap, will allow you to access exactly at the grid. On the other hand, if you don't have the grid snap on, when you do rectangle, you will be able to click wherever you want. Here, notice that with grid snap on, I'm going to do, if you right click, it's going to access the last command that you had on. So grid snap will now only let me access the grid. So sometimes that's very useful, and it's one of the easiest ways to make sure that you have your closed curve. So now you can also create a solid from this curve, and instead of creating a surface and then extruding the surface, you can do an extrusion from this curve and then from where you would use your solid options, extrude planar curve straight, and then that will give you a closed extrusion where you can check what is the volume of that part, and it's 3600 cubic millimeters. Okay, which if you were to create a surface here, then this surface, you can check the area with the area option, and it's 200 square millimeters. Or if you have a line here to enter. You can check the length of that line, and those three operations will help you to identify the scaling of an object. You can place a line and then scale. So for instance, if you have a circle right at the middle, and then you do scale, which we'll go with transformations later. This part, enter, and from this is the center, this is the edge, and then you move it here. Now your part is scaled to that dimensions. And length is very useful, area is very useful, and the volume is very useful because when you want to 3D print a part, the volume operation will give you information about how much material or resin you'll have to use for your printing job.